Deuteronomy. These be the words of Dabari, chapter 30. These be the words, chapter 30. This is the prophecy regarding the awakening. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 through 10. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither Yahweh thy Elohim have driven thee, and shalt return unto Yahweh thy Elohim, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart, all thy soul, that then Yahweh thy Elohim will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither Yahweh thy Elohim have scattered thee. If any of them be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahweh thy Elohim gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And Yahweh thy Elohim will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And Yahweh thy Elohim will circumcise thy heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And Yahweh thy Elohim will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh, and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. And Yahweh thy Elohim will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land, for good. For Yahweh will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which are written in this book of the law. And if thou turn unto Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul. That was Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 to 10. Now we turn to Isaiah chapter 58 as our morning reading continues. Isaiah chapter 58, verses 12, 13, and 14. Isaiah 58, 12, 13, and 14. And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundation of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahweh honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in Yahweh. And I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of Yahweh hath spoken. That is Isaiah 58, verses 12, 13, and 14. Now we turn to the book of Acts of the Apostles. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13. Acts of the Apostles 13, verses 38 to 44. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13, verses 38 to 44. And the scripture reads, Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins. And by him all that believe are justified from all things, from which ye could not be justified by the law of Moses. Beware therefore lest that come upon you, which is spoken of in the prophets. Behold, ye despise, and wonder and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And when the Yahudim were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now, when the congregation was broken up, many of the Yahudim and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Yahweh. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Yahweh. Praise the Most High. That was Acts chapter 13, verses 38 to 44. Now we turn to the epistle that was addressed to the Hebrews. Epistle that was addressed to the Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 8. Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he said, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith Yahweh. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a Elohim, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh. For all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. Praise the Most High. As Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. Now we turn to the revelation of the Messiah. Revelation of the Messiah, Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 7, and 12. Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 7, and 12. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear Yahweh, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea, and the fountains of water. Verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of Yahweh, and the faith of Yahweh Shai. That is Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 7, and 12. Now we turn to the Revelation chapter 11, the seventh trumpet. Revelation chapter 11, from verses 15 to 19. Revelation chapter 11, from verses 15 to 19. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Adoni and of his Mashiach, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders, which sat before Yahweh on their seats, fell upon their faces and worshiped Yahweh, saying, We give thee thanks, O Yahweh al Shaddai, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. And the temple of Yahweh was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thundering, and an earthquake and great hail. Seventh trumpet, Revelation chapter 11, verses 15 to 19. Last but not least, we go back to Isaiah, otherwise known as Yeshaya. His Hebrew name is Yeshaya. But we go back to Isaiah, and we're looking at chapter 66. Isaiah chapter 66. And in Isaiah 66, we're going to be reading from verses 22 to 24. Isaiah 66, verses 22 to 24. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith Yahweh, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith Yahweh. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. That was Isaiah 66, verses 22 to 24. Shabbat shalom to the scattered nation of Israel, Yashar all over the earth. We are studying Revelation, and we're looking today at Revelation chapter 2. We have been looking at the 7 churches as we started the book of Revelation. Last night we studied Thyatira. Today we're going to look at Sardis and possibly Philadelphia. But we started with Thyatira last night. And before we get into it, I'd like to just give a little backdrop of what we've already studied, just to help people and give us understanding of where we are. We were looking at Daniel, if you recall. And as we were looking at Daniel, we looked at Daniel 2, 7, 8, and 9. This is mostly what we studied in the book of Daniel. And in Daniel chapter 8, if you recall, Daniel was shown 2 animals that represent 2 nations. And the 2 nations were part of the 4 empires that the Most High showed throughout time on this earth, that culminates in the empire that is a deceivable empire of religion in Rome called the Roman Catholic Church, but started there as the Roman Empire. We also studied, as we looked at Daniel 8, as Daniel saw these 2 animals, which represented the Medes and the Persians, the 2nd empire after Babylon, and then the Greeks, the 3rd empire after Babylon. And then finally, he showed us this little horn power, which we know to be the Roman Catholic Church. During all of this time, as you recall, when we were looking at even Daniel 2, even Daniel 7, and Daniel 8, there was no mention of the children of Israel, if you recall. Daniel's people were not mentioned at all in Daniel 2. They were, except at the end, when the stone cut out without hands makes a kingdom, that's where it's mentioned. And in Daniel 7, when Messiah was given the kingdom, and they said the saints shall possess the kingdom and take it forever and ever. But mostly the focus was on these heathen powers. And in Daniel 8, you didn't see any mention in terms of the people of the Most High, only in as much as it says that this pagan power would cast the truth to the ground and it would practice and prosper. And then we saw that there was a long prophecy, a long prophetic prophecy, during which this pagan power would be exercising authority, and also the sanctuary in heaven wouldn't begin to go through its cleansing process until the end of this long period. So let's look at this in Daniel chapter 8. We're in Revelation. I'm just reviewing something that's going to help as we're looking at Sardis today. In Daniel chapter 8. We're going to start and talk about this little horn. And I'm going to start at Daniel 8. I'm going to start at verse 9. I'm going to go from verse 9 down to verse 14 of Daniel chapter 8. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. Out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. And by him the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily by reason of transgressing. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So we talked about the cleansing of the sanctuary. If you recall, we read from Hebrews and we read from Leviticus in terms of the sanctuary service that the Most High Yah gave to Moses to give to the children of Israel, and how every day there was two sacrifices. There was a morning and an evening sacrifice in the nation of Israel. And then once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the sanctuary was cleansed. The people were to confess all their sins, and all their confessed sins were taken from the most holy place of the sanctuary and placed on the head of a scapegoat. We saw that this earthly transaction and this earthly sanctuary that Moses was instructed to build was a copy of what is already made in heaven without hands. And that in heaven there is a most holy place, and that the sacrificial animal in heaven is the Messiah himself. And that here in Daniel 8, when it's talking about the cleansing of the sanctuary, it was in response to a question: how long are you going to give this entity power to trodden the truth on the ground and cast down your sanctuary and make himself big, make himself to the host of heaven? How long are you going to allow that? And then he said, unto 2,300 evenings and mornings, the sanctuary would be cleansed. So after 2,300 evening and mornings, we saw that from Numbers 14:34 and from Ezekiel 4:6, we saw that a day is equal to a year in Bible prophecy. Therefore, this was not 2,300 evening and mornings in a literal sense, but 2,300 years. Daniel wasn't shown when the beginning of this time would be, and he wanted to know because his people were not even mentioned. Therefore, they would be silent for most of this time. They would not play a large role in history. We saw later that the same angel Gabriel that explained to Daniel most of what he saw in Daniel 8 came back to him in Daniel 9 to explain the 2,300 days. And he showed Daniel that there was a 490-year period that was separated from that 2,300 specifically for the nation of Israel. We saw that the prophetic utterance was they would fail and that they would be scattered all over the earth and they would be placed in slavery, which is what happened. And then this time period will continue. And we saw this time period started when Artaxerxes gave the command to restore and build Jerusalem, 457 BC, and it ended in 1844. That is why, as we're looking at the book of Revelation, and we're looking at, for example, the second, third centuries, which was Smyrna, the 4th century Pergamos, the 5th, 6th century Thyatira, and going forward until today, we're looking past that even. We're going into the 19th century with Sardis. You don't hear mention of the original Israelites. You see these prophecies are based in Europe, and you say, well, you might say, why are they based in Europe? Well, if you recall, the 2,300-year period would be a period of silence to the nation. You understand? So that the center now is based in Rome and the development of the Roman church. That's why these prophecies are going. So as we're studying Sardis, you're seeing the end of that, and then you're seeing in Philadelphia, we're going to show you the beginning of the awakening. Okay, everybody hearing me so far? Testing 1, 2, 3. And let's look at one other witness to this. We looked at Daniel chapter 8. I want to look at the Psalms. I want to go back in the Psalms. And I want to look at Psalms 82. Psalms 82. No, I'm sorry. Psalms 83. I want to look at Psalms 83. And I want you to note Psalms 83 is in line with what we're talking about here. Psalms 83, I'm going to begin at verse 1. And I'm going to go down to verse, let's see, 4. From 1, actually from 1 to 5. Psalms 83, thank you, Aisha, from 1 to 5. Notice what it says. Keep not thou silent, O Yah. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yah. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. They that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So you can see here that the nations of the earth have gotten together to attack the people of the Most High Yah, to make them to be no more in remembrance, to cut them off from the earth, to cut off the remembrance of the empire and the kingdom that they had. And that's why you're not going to see much about the true Israelites in churches 3 and 4 and 5. Because as we're looking at Revelation chapter 2, this is where we were hidden. You understand? We are the hidden ones. We are silent at this time. At this time, we're scattered into African nations. At this time, we are being forced to accept a new religion. Aside from, this is not even Christianity yet. We're talking about Islam. We're being forced to accept Islam in Africa. And then later we're taken into slavery, into the Americas and into Europe and into the islands of the sea. And we're forced fed Christianity. That is what's going on during this time period. And the focus is on the rise of the whore, the rise of Jezebel, which started with the Balaam type council and continues to Sardis. Okay, everybody following me so far? Testing 1, 2, 3. So I wanted to give that backdrop as we're looking at Sardis today, because we looked, last night we looked at Thyatira, and we saw the rise of the Roman church in Thyatira. And we saw how it compared her to Jezebel, and it said that she calls herself a prophetess, and she teaches and seduces his servants to commit fornication, to eat things sacrificed to idol. He gave her space to repent, and she didn't. And he said he's going to cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repented their deeds. He said he will kill her children with death, and all the assembly shall know that the Most High is the one that searches the reins and the hearts, to give everyone according to their work. Remember that? And then he said in verse 24 of Revelation chapter 2, verse 24, Revelation 2:24, but unto you I say, and unto the rest of Thyatira, as many as have not this doctrine, and which have not known the depths of Asatan as they speak, I will put upon you none other burden. So we saw here that during what's called the Middle Ages, which is also known as the Dark Ages, Rome was large of the European part of the world. And they spread their wings into India and into Africa as well. If they didn't do it with Roman Catholicism directly, they did it with an invention that they made, And this invention was called, this is an invention of the Roman Catholic Church. I know people are not going to want to hear this or believe it, yet it is true, for she is the mother of all harlots. She invented this religion called Islam. She used a woman called Khadijah and her Roman Catholic father to teach an illiterate man named Muhammad this religion. And it spread into Africa. into the middle, what's now the Middle East, and into the Far East. It spread into the north even. And that, along with Roman Catholicism, was spread all over what was then the center of the earth, which was centered at that point in Europe and gone down into Africa as well. So now what you had is people that were for many, many centuries deprived of the word of the Most High. This was because of the original transgression of our fathers of worshiping other gods. This is what started it all. Our fathers worshiped other gods while we were in the land that was promised to us. And in worshiping other gods, we violated the most important of all commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And the Most High, as a result of us worshiping other gods and breaking his command, caused us to be scattered through the earth. And that's where the darkness started taking over. And so here in Thyatira, the Most High has mercy because there are groups of people. For example, there are people that arose during the Dark Ages, and they were called Protestants. And there were people that were called reformers. And there was, in fact, there was a period of time that they called it the Reformation. You guys may have heard of that. And there were Caucasian men like the German Martin Luther or the English William Tyndale and many others, Zwingli, that were rebelling against the authority of the Roman Catholic Church because they had all got a glimpse of the scrolls of the scriptures, either in Greek or in Hebrew. And then as they started studying the scrolls, they saw contradiction between what the Roman Catholic Church taught as it claimed to be the representation of Messiah and what the scriptures taught. And each of these men, they started individually their own studies and then began to stand on their convictions. Now, they did not know the truths that we know now. They did not. We know much more now than they knew. But they knew enough to know that the Roman church was not the chosen church, not the chosen people. They knew enough to know that. They did not understand that even Christianity itself was an invention. They didn't understand that. So you had Martin Luther from Germany create his own congregation, which eventually became the Lutheran Christian Church. You had in England, the king start the Church of England. And then you had people like, again, the aforementioned William Tyndale, Zwingli. And out of these men came all of these Christian churches. You had Baptist churches started. Pentecostal came much later in the 20th century. But then you had the Church of England, the Anglican Church, Orthodox Church. You had people like the Amish come from, and the Quakers come out of these European areas, trying to follow the Bible, but not quite getting it. Well, they wouldn't get it because they weren't the original people of the Most High, but they didn't know any better. They were trying to follow what they knew. Then you had to the south, in the continent of what we call Africa, you had people that were Hebrew, that were escaped from the nation of Israel through persecution of the Romans, that were now practicing Islam. And they were being enslaved by Arabs. Then later by the Europeans that said they were Christians. They were being enslaved by these people and also by the people that called themselves Jews and were not, but the children of Japhet and the Ashkenaz. They were making merchandise of the nation of Israel's chosen people, the chosen people of Yah, through these various areas. But even among those devils, there were people that were honest in heart, trying to do the right thing. And even a man like Tyndale, which I admire most of all, because he is the one that caused us to have the King James Bible. I know they call it the King James. I know it came out in 1611, but the majority of what you have today as the King James and what was originally the King James came from the Tyndale Bible. They killed him. They murdered him before he could finish it. But the Tyndale Bible is the original Bible that we now call the King James. Okay. And so these men and these people were actually sacrificing their lives to try to get the truth of the word to the common people and to cause people to escape the bondage of the Roman church. And then there were a lot of them that just wanted to reform the Roman church and not really wanted it to be destroyed at all. Like I said, they didn't understand that Christianity itself, along with Islam, are made up religions, that they have nothing to do with the Creator. So that is why you had, he's later here in Sardis. Let's read now in Sardis. Let's read Sardis, which is Revelation chapter 3. We're going to read from verse 1 down to verse 6. Revelation chapter 3 from verse 1 to verse 6. Notice what it said. And unto the angel of the church in Sardis, or the assembly in Sardis, write, these things saith he that hath the 7 spirits of Yahweh and the 7 stars. I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain, that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before Yahweh. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. Thou hast a few names, even in Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment. And I will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the assembly. Notice, Messiah is still speaking here. And Messiah said, he made a statement. He said, he that overcometh shall walk, be clothed in white raiment. And he will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but will confess his name before his Father and before his angels. I'd like to start here. And the reason why is because it's important to understand people are believing that once their names are written in the book of life, they can't be blotted out. That is a lie. In this statement, the Messiah shows you the ability to blot people's names out of the book of life. Moses also showed us that when he actually requested that his name be blotted out. You say, why would Moses actually request? He requested that the Most High take his name out of the book of life. You say, why would he do such a thing? Why would he actually request this to be done? The reason he did was because of the sin of his people, and he was willing to forsake his eternal existence for the benefit of his people, a sign of the Messiah to come. Let's look at that in Exodus chapter 32. Yes, Exodus chapter 32 it is. Exodus chapter 32. This is after he had come down from the mountain with the 2 tables of the covenant in his hand. And he saw the people sinning against the Most High, having orgies and committing adultery and fornication and worshiping a golden calf. And he broke the 2 tables, and he knew that they had broken the covenant that they made with the Most High. He knew they had broken it, and he knew what it meant. So let's take it up from there. Exodus chapter 32. From verse 29 down to verse 35. For Moses had said, consecrate yourselves today to Yahweh, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses said unto the people, ye have sinned a great sin. And now I will go up unto Yahweh. Peradventure I shall make an atonement for your sin. And Moses returned unto Yahweh and said, "Oh, this people have sinned a great sin, and have made them gods of gold. Yet now, if thou wilt forgive their sin," and notice there is a hesitation here, there is a silence. "And if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book which thou hast written." And Yahweh said unto Moses, "Whosoever have sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Therefore, now go lead the people unto the place of which I have spoken unto thee. Behold, mine angel shall go before thee. Nevertheless, in that day when I will visit their sin upon them." And Yahweh plagued the people because they made a calf which Aaron made. Now, Moses was willing in his intercession for the people to make atonement for them with the sacrifice of himself. Moses was not in a position to do that. He wanted to do it, but the reason Moses could not do it was why? Why couldn't Moses be the sacrifice for the sins of the people, as Yahushua was eventually the sacrifice for the sins of the people? Why couldn't Moses be the sacrifice? He offered himself to be the sacrifice. Why couldn't he? There was one major problem. Moses was a sinner. That's right. He had sinned. You have to be sinless to be the sacrifice for the sins of the people. Moses was a sinner, but he was willing to sacrifice his own eternal existence. And the Most High answered him and said, "He that sins against me, him will I blot out of my book." That's what he said. See? So it's possible to be in the book and then later blot it out because of this problem called sin. Sin causes the problem. That is why we will reiterate again and again and again even that the doctrine of justification by faith is extremely important. Without it, you cannot overcome your sin. Without it, you might have been placed in the book of life, but you can be blotted out. And in Sardis, he said, there are a few names there who will not be blotted out. I will confess them. And this is the thing. Messiah, this is his role. One of his roles is to confess you and me before the Father and before the Father's angels. Why does he mention the angels? You know, angels don't want you and me up there if we're going to mess up like Asatan did. You know, they don't want us up there if we're going to mess up like Asatan did. You know, they don't want no parts of that. So, but they believe Messiah. So when Messiah says they good, they say, okay, they good. You hear what I'm saying? If Messiah doesn't confess you, if he don't speak up on your behalf, you got no shot. They're not letting you in. You're not coming into the kingdom. You understand? So Messiah says, she's good. I got her. Then they'll say, okay, she's good. I got her. Messiah said he good. I got her. I got her. Okay, then they're good. Messiah says they're good. He said, but he said he will confess his name before my Father and before his angel. See? See, y'all think, people think angels are these soft, flowery beings that just float around and they just smile all the time. Angel, just say Gabriel. Gabriel, you know what his name means? Warrior of the Most High. He's not playing. Angels don't play, man. They're on a mission for the Father, and they're not trying to hear sin. So the Messiah, he confesses us before the angels and before the Father. And he says that if he does that, you're going to walk before him in white. Now, see, this is white right here. This is real white right here. This is not some person calling himself white. This is you wearing white. Why? Because white means pure, spotless, holy, clean. That's what white is. There ain't no such thing as a white person on the earth. Ain't no white man on the earth. You got Anglo-Saxons. You got sons of Japhet. You got Caucasians. Well, don't ever call no man white. You're gonna wear white if you consider holy to the Most High, which means you have been spotless. You have been holy, set apart, reflective of his character of righteousness, he will put you in white. So he says there's a few names in Sardis. Who are them few names? I mentioned some of them. William Tyndale, 16th century with Martin Luther, Horace Zwingli. Okay, you had others that came along. I can't remember all of these Caucasian men's names, but there are some that stood up. And then, of course, later on, what you have later on, y'all ever heard of a Caucasian man named John Brown? You ever heard of a Caucasian man named John Brown? You ever heard of him? Y'all heard of John Brown? Y'all ain't heard of him? You better look that boy up. You better look that boy up. You know what John Brown did? John Brown was what they called an abolitionist in the United States. He was an abolitionist. What was that? Abolitionists were fighting against slavery. They were trying to free the slaves. These were Caucasian people that were trying to free the slaves. And they would try to do it any way possible. They tried to do it by the legal means. They would do it by revolutionary means. They did it any way possible. These were the Caucasian versions of Nat Turner, if you will. John Brown was one of the leaders. You hearing what I'm saying? He's one of them that's going to walk in white. He's one of them that Messiah is talking about. Not all of them messed up. Not all of them. Some of them are mine. See? Some of them are mine. John Brown was one of those, as some of those other Caucasian men that I mentioned from Europe. So now he said, remember, he said, be watchful and strengthen the things that remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before Yahweh. Again, this makes sense because, again, you're coming into Protestantism, you're coming into the Reformation, and they still are ignorant. They still don't realize that Christianity is not the religion of the Messiah. They still think Messiah is a Caucasian man. So you see, they're not perfect before the Most High. They're not his real people, but they think they are. You understand? And then the real people are down in Africa, enslaved by Arabs and forced into Islam. You understand? That's where you get Sardis from. This here, this represents from like the 6th century all the way up into the 18th century and 19th century. This is a long way here. From Thyatira starts at the 6th century, goes all the way up to like the 16th century. Then you go from the 16th century to like the 19th century with Sardis. Now we come into the 19th and 20th century. Now we go into Philadelphia. Now, remember, before we start Philadelphia, I want to say some things. First off, I want to say, remember, I want to remind you that the Bible talks about the book of Revelation in terms of 3 time periods. Remember? Past, present, and future. You recall? Past, present, and future. See? So as we looked at Sardis and going back to Ephesus, we done looked at the past. We're going to look at where we at right now. That's Philadelphia. Somebody say, well, what about Laodicea? Aren't we in Laodicea? Laodicea is being formed, but it's not fully formed yet. It is the 7th church. When the 7th seal is open, when the 7th trumpet is sounded, that's when it's fully formed. It's being formed right now. You can see it, right? You can see it being formed. We're going to talk about that. But we're in Philadelphia right now, because out of Philadelphia comes the 144,000. That's right. The 144,000 are given birth to in Philadelphia. They're coming forth. They're being developed. This is the present. This is where we are right now. Okay? Laodicea is where we're getting ready to be. I know people have been taught that we already Laodicea because of certain churches acting like Laodicea. And that is true. Certain churches are acting like Laodicea. There's no question about it. But you see, it's not until everybody is sealed that you actually have that. You understand what I'm saying? People are sealed in their character. See, this is where we're living right now. We're living at a time where the Messiah is being, the Father is using the Messiah to send his spirit and seal his people in the spirit of the Most High Yah, in the spirit of the Father. And as people are being sealed, and right now you can see it, people are being sealed for the devil as well. There are people on the earth right now that will kill their children and don't think a second thought about it. There are people right now that will rape a little boy and don't think twice about it. Think they did something good. They'll smile about it. There are people right now that will kill whole countries of people and know they suffering and steal from them and sleep like a baby at night. This is where we at right now. We're in a time in Earth's history where people are getting sealed in the satanic spirit, and people are being sealed in the Father's spirit at the same time. See, that's why the Messiah said, what did he say? He said in his parable, he said, let the wheat and the tares grow together until the harvest. Isn't that what he said? He said, let the wheat and the tares grow together until the harvest. Okay? That's where we at right now. And the thing is, brothers and sisters, as we said before, and we'll say it again, with the doctrine of justification by faith, we understand very clearly that the object of that doctrine is to cause us to overcome our sin and keep the commandments of the Most High Yah. And you understand what I'm saying? You saw when we studied Deuteronomy, we took our time and we studied it, and you've seen it in almost every chapter. In almost every single chapter, the warning was given. Don't worship other gods. Keep my commandments. Don't worship other gods. Keep my commandments. Keep all my commandments, statutes, and judgments. Don't worship other gods. Right? So the object is to cause sin to be placed, to take it off his people, that his righteousness be put on his people, and they keep his commandments. Does that make sense, brothers and sisters? Because in obedience to the commandments of Yah, you show your love of Yah. And you cannot properly keep his commandments unless his spirit of righteousness is all on you and working in you. Does that make sense? Are we following so far? So we studied these things. So now we're looking at Philadelphia. We're looking at Philadelphia now. This is where we live. This is us. Before we go to Philadelphia, I want to say one more thing about Sardis stuff. Revelation chapter 3, verse 1. Notice how Messiah described himself to the age of the Sardis. He said, these things said he that hath the 7 spirits of Yah and the 7 stars. I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. The 7 spirits are, see, the number 7, we know is a number of perfection and completion. This is a representation of the Father's spirit. When he says the 7 spirits of Yahweh, he's talking about the Father's spirit, right? So he says, I know, he knows everything. He knows our hearts. He knows our motives even, right? He knows our hearts. He knows our motives. He knows what makes us tick, right? He knows that messages that he has sent to us that we should be convicted on, what we kind of chance to know. See, that's why we ourselves right now, we can't, I mean, when a person rapes somebody, you can call them a rapist, right? When a person lies and they outright lie, you can call them a liar, right? But we really ultimately are hard pressed to know somebody's future, really, because the Most High knows the hearts of people. You understand? Because his spirit knows the heart. And that's why we're saying Sardis was ignorant. They had a name that lived. They called themselves by a Christian, Messiah's name, but they were dead. They didn't know any better because they weren't the true Hebrews. But they did what they knew to do, like John Brown, when he come to rescue them Hebrews from slavery, when he come to try to rescue them, when he pulled out his gun and was shooting even, they end up hanging John Brown. They hung him in West Virginia because he was trying to help slaves escape. There's a few names, even in Sardis, that have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk before Messiah in white. And he will confess their name before the Father, and before the angels. He will confess their name. Praise the Most High. But now we turn to Philadelphia. Philadelphia. Brotherly love. Brotherly love. Philadelphia. Let's take a look. We're going to break this one down. We're going to take our time. We're not going to rush. We might take a while with Philadelphia. We might take a minute. Because I'm telling you, this is where we live right now. So you think, so it's important, right? We got to know the past, but we got to know where we live right now. Right? Philadelphia, Revelation chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 7. Revelation chapter 3 and verse 7. Revelation 3:7. Notice what it says. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. So he describes himself, Messiah describes himself as having the key of David. He describes himself as holy and true, right? He describes himself as opening and no man can shut, and shutting and no man can open. He describes himself in these ways, brothers and sisters, because he is opening. What is he opening? What is he opening? What have we been talking about? Where is he? Where is he? He's in the holy place. Well, what does he need to open? What does he need to open? He openeth and no man shut, and he shuts and no man open. What does he need to open? Huh? Talk to me. I'm asking a question. What does he need to open? What does he need to open? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? What does he need to open? What does it mean when he says he has the key of David? What does it mean when it says he has the key of David? Yeah, I'm asking a question. Well, he needs to open the book of life, true. But he's talking about the key of David. Does the key of David open the book of life? Does the key of David open the book of life? What does the key of David open? What is it that he's opening? Okay. All right, let me ask the question again. Messiah describes himself here as being holy and true. He describes himself as having the key of David. He says he openeth and no man shutteth, and he shutteth and no man openeth. Right? What is it? Where is he? And what does he need to open? Don't forget where he is. And what does he need to open? And why does he need to open it? And what does he have the key of? The key of David. These are good questions, aren't they? Y'all thinking about it. I'm glad you are. So look, I want to show you. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 22. Isaiah 22. Let's look at Isaiah 22. Isaiah chapter 22. Notice what it says. Let's go with Isaiah 22. Hold on. Isaiah 22. See, if people read the Bible, right? If they really read the Bible, they would see a lot more than they see. The problem is people don't really read the Bible. Okay. Okay. I want to let's look at Isaiah 22. Let's see. Where should I start? I'm going to start. I'm going to start at verse 17. And I'm going to go down to verse 25. From verse 17 down to verse 25, Isaiah 22. Notice what it says. Behold, Yahweh will carry thee away with a mighty captivity, and will surely cover thee. And he will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. There shalt thou die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of thy Lord's house. And I will drive thee from thy station, and from thy state shall he pull thee down. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with thy robe and strengthen him with thy girdle, and I will commit thy government into his hand. And he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulders. And he shall open, and none shall shut. And he shall shut, and none shall open. And I will fashion him as the nail in a sure place. And he shall be for a glorious throne to his father's house. And they shall hang upon him all the glory of his father's house, the offspring and the issue, all vessels of small quantity from the vessels of cups, even to all the vessels of flagons. In that day, saith Yahweh of hosts, shall the nail that is fashioned in the sure place be removed and be cut down and fall, and the burden that was upon it shall be cut off, for Yahweh hath spoken. Wait, do y'all see the similarities between what we just read in Revelation in chapter 3 with Philadelphia and what we are reading here in Isaiah 22? Do you see the similarities? He said he's going to put upon Eliakim, he said, I'm going to put upon him the key of the house of David. Right? He shall hang upon him all the glory of his father's house. There you go, Sister Castro. There you wait a minute. Now we catching it. That's right. There you go. That's right. Okay. Now wait. He's talking about Eliakim, but we know this is a prophecy, so it's also end time. So obviously Eliakim is a representation of Messiah. You following me? Testing 1, 2, 3. He said, I'm going to take you into a mighty captivity, he told the nation. I'm going to put you in a mighty captivity. Well, let me ask you, have the true Israelites been in a mighty captivity or have they not? We talked about us being enslaved by both the Arabs and the Caucasian man. We talked about us being pushed upon with Islam and Christianity. Have we? Yeah, I think that's true. Right? Everybody got me? So when he say, I'm going to lay upon him the house of David, now what he's saying is, upon Messiah, the house of David, the kingdom of the nation of Israel is going to be on the Messiah, right? Obviously, he's going to be the king of this earthly kingdom. When he takes control of this thing, he's going to be the king. He's the prince right now, the father's son, but he's going to be the king of this earth. And who is this going to be? His people. He said, I'm going to open and no man can shut. I'm going to shut and no man can open. Where is he? Remember where he is. He's in the holy place. What does he need to do? He needs to go into the most holy. Does he not? Does he not? Is he not the high priest? And we saw him in chapter 1 in the holy place. And we said that at some point he got to go into the what? Into the most holy. Are you following me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Are you following me? Testing 1, 2, 3. So we know now, according to the 2300-year prophecy, Philadelphia is the end of that prophecy. That is 1844. That's when he goes into the most holy place. And then we know also that the Father was ready for the Messiah to return shortly after that. And there was a delay. So that in the 1840s, Father was ready. But there was a delay. And you say, remember, why was there a delay? See, when we get to the sixth and the sixth seal, you're going to see it more clearly. But you remember we read in Revelation chapter 7, there was a delay. Notice again, Revelation chapter 7, from verse 1 down to verse 4. Revelation chapter 7, verse 1 to 4. Notice Revelation 7, 1 to 4. Notice what it says. And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Yahweh. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So there's a delay. Why? For the 144,000 sake. So he's opening the door to the most holy now. And who has access? The nation of Israel has access. Why would they have access? Because their people are going there to be sealed, to have sin taken off of them, to have righteousness put on them. You follow me so far? Testing 1, 2, 3. See, this what you just got right now, what the Most High has given us here, very few people on planet Earth have this. I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to brag or boast. I'm just telling you. Very few people on planet Earth have this. And which is why we know it's for the servants of the Most High. Praise his holy name. So, when he said, I'm giving you the key of David, Messiah, no man going to going to open what you shut, and no man going to shut what you open. I'm giving you the key of David. I'm going to cause the kingdom to rest on your shoulder. Okay? You holy and true, just like the Father, holy and true. Just like the covenant, holy and true. Praise the Most High. Yeah. You holy and true. And you're in Philadelphia. Brotherly love. That's what Philadelphia means. Brotherly love. That's when the brothers are going to come together. See, right now, the brothers scattered, the brothers fight, but we're going to come together as the Spirit of the Most High comes upon us. We're not going to be fighting each other. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to stop right here. And I'm going to take a break. I'm going to stop right here. And we're going to come back and continue in Philadelphia. Okay? We'll come back and continue in Philadelphia. I'm going to stop